ladies and gentlemen. This is Season 2, Episode 25, Hoystory on Air. It is Thursday, June 25th, 2026. We're going to be talking about politics today. Just kind of thinking out loud here. I'm probably going to cut down that intro because, I did that when I thought I was going to be doing it live all the time. And now, since I'm doing it recorded all the time, you don't need the 30-second intro. I'll fix that, probably in the future. Talking politics, New York had its primary on Tuesday, and shocker, a bunch of radical Dems, a bunch of left-wing Democrats got primaried by some radical Dems. And I'm going to go through some of those in New York. But, ladies and gentlemen, Democrats have a problem. Republicans have problems too. The Republicans put up some extreme and bad candidates from time to time. But the Democratic Party is going to have to decide here pretty quickly whether they are willing to move, and I don't say this lightly, really, but to the extreme socialist / communist left. And I'm talking like Bernie Sanders and further left than he is. And he's pretty far left. He considers himself a socialist. I think he says he's an independent, although he caucuses with Democrats. But this is a guy who took his honeymoon in the Soviet Union. Not Russia, the Soviet Union. They never learn history. So we have some troubling Democratic candidates. I want to first highlight New Jersey Democrat who's going to wins the primary to replace a retiring Democratic candidate there in New Jersey. His name's Adam Hamaway. Hamaway? I'm not sure how you pronounce the W-Y. Egyptian-born former combat surgeon, once volunteered with an al-Qaeda-linked group in Bosnia. And this happened about a month ago. Again, this was New Jersey. The New York stuff was this past Tuesday. He is a critic of Israel, endorsed by the Squad. He was an Iraq War veteran for our side. But then again, so was the Fort Hood shooter. At least he was a member of the military. Hamaway has made national headlines for saving Senator Tammy Duckworth's life after a helicopter crash, as well as for his volunteer work in the Gaza Strip. However, and this is where the terror link is, he interned in 1994 with the Benevolence International Foundation in Bosnia. The 9/11 Commission report described the now defunct Benevolence International Foundation's operation in Bosnia as part of an impressive array of offices that covertly provided financial and other support for terrorist activities by Osama bin Laden in the 1990s. With authorities alleged in a 2003 court filing that the Benevolence International was used by the terror group as a front to establish a base for operations in Europe against al-Qaeda's true enemy, the United States. This should be troubling. I don't think we want this guy anywhere near the Intelligence Committee or anything having to do with our national security. And he's, again, this is a situation where all of the candidates that I mentioned here have won their primaries. And they haven't won their primary in a state or with a seat where Republicans are usually going to contest it. These are all cases where you win in the primary. Odds are, unless, you die before that happens for some, strange reason, or something really big blows up. And I'm not, the question is, how big does it have to be to blow up to stop some of these people from getting to Congress? So this is from Andrew McCarthy at National Review. He was the federal prosecutor on the Blind Sheikh case. And for those of you who are younger and who do not know who the Blind Sheikh was, he was the guy basically behind the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center before bin Laden and his crew got it brought down in 2001. there was a plot, and they had a couple of trucks loaded with, I think it was fertilizer, ammonium nitrate, parked it in the parking garages beneath the buildings and tried to get them to, bring them down that way. Unsuccessful, but people did die in that attack. McCarthy writes, Hamway was a friend and aide to the blind sheikh, which is why he voluntarily appeared as a witness for him. The main subject of his testimony was a trip to Detroit in 1991. A government informant had testified that during the trip, when the informant was discussing his time in the Egyptian army, the blind sheikh asked him why he hadn't turned his gun on Hosni Mubarak, Sadat's successor. Hamwani claimed, not very convincingly, that he hadn't heard any such conversation. The evidence that Abdel Rahman, that's the blind sheikh, conspired to murder Mubarak and repeatedly called for his assassination was overwhelming, and the jury convicted him of conspiracy and incitement in connection with Mubarak, as well as seditious conspiracy to levy war against the United States, among other terrorism-related charges. Hamawi conceded on cross-examination that although the economics was the ostensible subject of the 1991 Detroit Conference, Abdel Rahman used the occasion to urge violent jihad against the United States and Israel. Quote, of course, that's what he always talked about. He talked about jihad, And that's a guy you associated with, and he's not like disavowing any of this nowadays. McCarthy concludes, which is to say, Hamawi knew exactly with whom he was associating. It could not be otherwise since the blind sheikh made no secret of it. Of course, another guy who palled around with a terrorist became president of the United States. His name was Barack Obama, and the terrorist was this Khalid Rashidi guy. And the LA Times, embarrassingly, apparently had a videotape of Obama praising Rashid Khalidi and has stuck it in a drawer and never released it, which is as anti-journalism as a journalistic outfit can get. If you ever wonder, hey, why is the news, is the news media taking sides? Yes, they take sides. Over in Michigan, you've got this guy who's a doctor. This guy's a doctor too. Yeah, he's a real doctor, not a Joe Biden doctor. Senate candidate claims Israel just as evil as Hamas. He's also faced scrutiny for his past comments and his association with streamer Hassan Piker, who's another odious individual, and who probably should be kicked out of this country. I realize he's an anchor baby. He's Cenk-Uygur of the Young Turks' nephew. They're both just not good people. Democratic Senate candidate Michigan insists Israel is just as evil as a terror organization. Hamas, yes, killing thousands of people makes you pretty damn evil, El Sayed answered. It's not how evil is this one versus that one. Hamas evil, Israeli government evil. We can say both. El Sayed, who's currently running the Democratic primary for Michigan's open Senate seat, has faced controversy in recent weeks as some of his old comments resurfaced. He suggested that during a town hall in 2025 that political leaders need to do a better job to understand the motivation behind the terrorists. I also think we need to be curious about why those things happen in the first place. Like, what drives somebody to want to commit such a heinous act? Doesn't really believe it's a heinous act. Because if Israel, it's an old William F. Buckley statement. It's like, if one person shoves an old woman in front of a bus, and someone else of a bus coming towards, and another person shoves the old lady out of the way of the bus, you don't get to say, it's dishonest to say they're both people who shove old ladies around. He also has drawn backlash for campaigning with far-left Twitch streamer Hassan Piker, who made his own share of inflammatory comments over the years. Among them included Piker's claim that Hamas was 1,000 times better than the fascist settler colonial apartheid state of Israel. Like I said, not good people. It's ahistorical. I mean, Tucker Carlson's peddling this stuff. A lot of people who get Qatari money are peddling this stuff. Jews have been there for millennia. Okay? You do archaeology. Jews were there. But now they want to say, oh, no, they're settlers because, they established the state of Israel in 1947, 48, right around there. Anyways, I'm not getting paid by the Jews or the Qataris. Suspect charged in Michigan anti-Israel terror campaign worked for El-Sayed. That's the kind of people he draws to him. Here's another one. Democrat leading Michigan Senate primary defended terrorist Muslim Brotherhood power grab in Egypt. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, top contender to be the Democratic Party nominee for the U.S. Senate in Michigan, has a history of downplaying the threat posed by the Muslim Brotherhood, now designated a terrorist group by the U.S., and even defended a brazen power grab by the Islamist group's leader during the Brotherhood's brief reign in Egypt. El-Sayed, who is seeking to be the first Muslim in the U.S. Senate, signed onto a 2012 statement which defended the Muslim Brotherhood's rule of Egypt and further defended a massive power grab by Mohammed Morsi, the leader of Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood. A statement purportedly signed by El-Sayed and published in an Egyptian newspaper contended that the revolutionary decisions which we have long called for but which the president has delayed for reasons unknown to us were necessary. And then this just came up. This is from the Washington Free Beacon today. Abdul Sayed was interviewed on a podcast, and run by a registered sex offender, told him, "You have something deep to offer. You should run for office." April 2020 episode of the Decarceration Nation podcast, hosted by Joshua Ho, that's a name, former University of Michigan debate coach who pleaded guilty in 2012 to soliciting a 14-year-old girl for sex in an online chat room. Served 4 years in prison, now a registered sex offender. Hey, you can pause it and read the rest of this. I mean, here in California, we had a guy who was a registered sex offender who was going to try and run for city council in Fresno, and they changed I'm not sure if they changed the rules at the city level or at the state level. They basically said, no, if you're a registered sex offender, you can't serve and you can't run. And that was a good thing. Now we're going to get to New York. This is Democratic Socialist Mamdani. And here's the thing. Mamdani, who's the mayor, who's an Islamist, who has canceled July 4th celebrations in New York because, he comes up with an excuse. Not a big fan of Jews. Endorsed several candidates, including 3 that ousted. They were left-wing Democrats. They were not like John Fetterman, who's still left-wing but not insane. There are, they were probably, because it's New York, right? They were probably to the left of the average Democrat, the Democrat from the heart, the Democrat you got from cities in the heartland, for the most part. They were already left of that. But the ones he endorsed are even further left. And one of them is Claire Valdez, who was in the New York State Assembly, elected to in 2024. So she spent 2 years there. Looks like she's going to go out and replace a retiring rep. She's from Lubbock, Texas, moved to New York to pursue a career as an artist in 2015. She's part Native American and a citizen of Isleta del Sur Pueblo Nation. Anyways, 2.5 years ago, Israeli leaders clearly stated their intent to carry out a genocide in Gaza, she said on an X post on June 3rd, and that's exactly what they did. I was in the streets with so many New Yorkers protesting our complicity and to free Palestine. Let's just go through this because it seems like there's a lot of people who believe this on the extreme left and the extreme right. There's no genocide in Gaza. There were no starving children. They were putting food in there like crazy. Israel waged the most restrained and humanitarian, if it can be, that word can be used, war in the history of the world. Did innocents get killed? Yes, it always happens in war. But as other people have been, as other people have said and observed, because it's obvious as the day is long, um, if Mexico, Tijuana, I'm from the San Diego area, so I'm familiar with this. If a cartel in Tijuana had come across the border into Chula Vista and started raping and murdering people at a music festival there, um, there wouldn't be much of Tijuana left. I don't think the U.S. military would be as concerned as the Israelis were. It's like, okay, you clear, they're dropping leaflets, clear out this neighborhood, move, they're broadcasting, move out of this area so we can get at the terrorists. So this genocide thing is a lie. For crying out loud, the population in Gaza has continued to increase in the last two plus years. It's a crappy genocide. She also has outwardly called for the abolishment of ICE, which she described as a fascist agency, and accused them of terrorizing the community and kidnapping people. State leaders cannot ignore this emergency any longer. We cannot allow one more neighbor to be targeted. And here's her on the habituation room. I don't listen to it. If you listen to it, you're probably going to hear crap like this.
Immigration in a different way. We hear all these, white conservative men talk about who does and does not belong here. And look, this nation was founded on genocide and the mass displacement of people. It's just the history. And to say that some people cannot belong here, it's like, come on. Like
Yeah, you can leave first is what you mean.
You can show yourself the door. This is a nation that that should be welcoming people here, that want to the people who come here to build better lives and for themselves and their families, to deserve real dignity, deserve to stay here, and we should be welcoming them. So it just gives.
So she really doesn't care about our immigration laws. We should have open borders. She wants to get rid of ICE. And again, this is a normal thing with this. It's and the last one of these people I'll get to is the worst. But it's if we welcome Tren de Aragua members or whatever they are, no, we shouldn't be welcoming South American gangs here. People who commit crimes, who've entered the country illegally and commit crimes, shouldn't be welcome here. Does America have a perfect past? No one who studied history thinks that. But I'd say better good than bad. It's like, oh, everything was great here before the white man came, and apparently she's watched Pocahontas, the Disney movie, too many times, because that's young people growing up. Oh, that's what it was like with the Native Americans here. No, they were warlike. They went and pillaged and raped and raided and all that other junk. Nobody's perfect. We are all humans. But to say that because 200, 300 years ago, some of our forefathers did some evil things, that means that we can't have laws today. You want to change the laws? I'll give you credit for that. You're doing it. You're getting elected to Congress to change these laws. Change the laws. Okay? If you can convince enough Americans to follow you, I guess good for you. I think if you ever got close to being successful, we'd see what a civil war was. Another one of them, Brad Lander. He's the former New York comptroller. I'm not sure if that's New York City. Yeah, New York City comptroller. He's the guy who controls the money. He's the money guy. And he thought that, the Chinese are good, and so we will put money and invest in Chinese companies that are running concentration camps and re-education camps for Uyghurs. And this is a law signed by Joe Biden in 2021. So he more than doubled the city's investment in firms on the list that Joe Biden put out from 4.8 million to 11.1 million. Now, if the Chinese putting Uyghurs in concentration camps is and re-education camps and all of that kind of garbage is okay, what's not okay? What's beyond the pale? Well, that would be ending investments in all Israeli bonds. Saving, one of the issues is, and politicians do this all the time, they do this in California too, where CalSTRS, which is the state teachers retirement system, and CalPERS, which is the retirement system for government workers. Somebody will get, Democrat will get into office. Oh, well, we're not going to invest in fossil fuel companies, or we're going to invest in green energy, blah, blah, blah. And as if this posing is the good thing. And the sad thing is they get up, they do that, and the funds lose money. Because reality has a democratic tilt, because Democrats live in the real world. Now, not when it comes to investments, they don't, because that's where they pose. So he won too. Surprise, surprise. He's Jewish, but he doesn't like Israel. He's one of those people. The alligator will eat me last type. State Senate seat. This was another Mamdani-backed candidate. This woman's name is Aber Kawas. Won the Democratic primary Tuesday. She's representing New York in the state Senate. 60% of the voters picked her over Assemblyman Stephen Raga, who's probably not a nut. But Kawas previously shrugged off the 9/11 attack as something a couple of people did. Guys, nearly 3,000 New Yorkers died on September 11th, 2001. And what the heck is going on in New York? If you doubt me, here's her saying it.
And so and finding that the system of capitalism and racism, and white supremacy, etc., and Islamophobia have all been used, to colonize lands, right, to take resources from other people. And so this is a long trajectory, and we're just seeing the manifestations of that continuation, right, with 9/11. And so a lot of times when people are asking us to respond about, attack, right, if you look back historically, right, a lot of us come from lands that were colonized, lands where wars are being waged, right, a lot of times because of U.S. policy or the policies in Europe. And so I find that we can connect over that, but then also that the idea that we have to apologize for a terror attack that a couple of people did, and then there is no apologies or reparations for genocides and for slavery, etc., is something that I kind of find reprehensible.
What I find reprehensible is apparently she got an education here. Slavery? What was one of the United States' first kind of foreign policy actions after becoming a nation? What was happening? Why is the Marine Corps song refer to the shores of Tripoli, which is in Libya? Well, because Muslims were there, taking U.S. ships, taking American citizens, and pressing them into slavery. She acts like Muslims never did that. Most of Muslim history is conquering lands and putting people into slavery. But no, always the victim. Always the victim. If you want to play, and this is why that reparations game is so dishonest. If you want to play that game, money is going to be handed back and forth all over the place. No, there is not a single society ever in the history of the world that has clean hands on this. Not a one. But hey, this is what you're getting there in New York State. This woman is probably going to be your representative in Albany, and what's she going to do? Are there enough other people there to stop her, or is she, there should be. She's free to say whatever she wants. Some of it should be disqualifying for getting elected here in the United States. And here's the crown jewel here. This is Daraliza Avila Chevalier. She's a 32-year-old PhD student. Someone did the math. She has been in school for 14 years. I'm counting post-high school. She's been in college for 14 years. She apparently got her BA in like 2012 or something like that. And she's still working on her PhD in 2026. It's got to be nice. I guess I don't want to see what her student loan looks like, but I'm sure she wants you and me to pay for that as well. She is a piece of work, and she is probably going to be a congresswoman come beginning of next year. Let's look into her background. In tweets from 2020, 2021, 2022, she called for abolishing all police, borders, and deportations, and attacked fellow Democrats, including calling former President Joe Biden a rapist. While she apologized for some of her past social media posts, she doubled down on others, including by saying she continues to believe that all forms of deportation, including of undocumented immigrants convicted of serious crimes like murder, should be banned. You get over the border, home free, you get to stay here forever. She is so far to the left that even a group that is very left as well, these are the Broadway Democrats, wouldn't endorse her. And they didn't like the guy who was still left, because these Broadway Democrats, like, we will vote for the most progressive candidate possible. They're like the exact opposite of William F. Buckley used to say. He would vote for the most right-wing candidate capable of getting elected. And you look at that, what does that mean? Well, that means Susan Collin in Maine. That's what that means. She's about as far right as you can be and get elected in Maine. They endorsed Mondani back when he was running for mayor, but they wouldn't do it for her. Why? That's because Chevalier refuses to condemn Hamas or anything about it. It's October 7th and hundreds of other murderous assaults on Israeli people, its execution of its own political dissidents, its theocratic view of government and what society is, its misogyny, its homophobia, its racism. That's what the group said. This woman will not condemn Hamas for anything. Who will she condemn? She'll condemn the United States on a regular basis. She will not condemn Hamas. Statements about Chevalier's position are not mere rumor, the political club wrote. At our own endorsement meeting, when asked to condemn Hamas and its October 7th attacks, she point-blank refused, turning the question to yet another attack on Israel. She said the 32-year-old said the question of condemning Hamas in Gaza on October 7th ignores the 75 years of occupation the Palestinian people have been subjected to, and the conditions that folks were living in under before this genocide began. Again, not a genocide. Broadway Democrats are like, we don't defend Israel's actions, but if you can't condemn, ladies and gentlemen, that should be a disqualifier. But there's more. Mamdani-backed congressional candidate, this is Chevalier again, deleted a post calling to seize private property, abolish police, borders, and prisons. August 2020, reposted a tweet responding to a social media prompt. that asks, Israel suddenly disappears, your third emoji is your reaction. And then she, quote, the reposted tweet, she replies to, trick question, Israel doesn't exist. And then, a world without borders, just like a world without prisons or police, is possible, necessary, and the only moral way forward. Did I mention she's been in college for 12 years? It takes a lot of education to be this stupid. I posted a, less than 3 minute, because that's how long the vertical shorts have to be, a couple days back about, and that was kind of the label I put on it. It takes a lot of education to be this stupid. I'm not sure. Where do you get that? A world without prisons? I mean, I'm guessing we're doing a utopia, but okay, if you don't want prisons or you don't want police, is that just vigilantes going around shooting people? During a 3-day period in September 2021, she all reposted now deleted messages declaring, yes, literally abolish the border, and that all deportation is wrong. During the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, Chevalier reposted a message calling for a sweeping government takeover of large parts of the economy. The repost advocated nationalizing utilities, hospitals, and pharmaceutical companies, suspending rent and mortgage payments, dissolving private health insurance companies, and seizing all properties from landlords. Seize the means of production, she wrote in a since-deleted 2019 post, the phrase commonly associated with Marxism. Yeah. Deleted posts also included repeated calls for abolishing police. During the nationwide protests in 2020 following the killing of George Floyd, she responded to a user asking what a better slogan would be than defund the police by posting, F you, we're going to defund and abolish, you don't get to water down our movements. 2 days later, she rejected an argument that abolishing police meant ending policing only as we know it. No, it means ending policing, full stop, period. No more police at all, ever. How does that world work? Because I bet you she'd vote for gun control, too. I guess the cops don't get the guns either, but so survival of the fittest, whoever the biggest person is. Take a look at this.
Delegation, and you're going to appear in all sorts of people's ads, all sorts of Republicans' ads to say, this is what you're going to get if you vote for the Democrats, a communist.
I think that framing is one that I've been very proud to be able.
Listen to see if she answers the question, because this was post her winning, okay, on Tuesday.
To say I don't respond to, one in which I have been very intentional to say I won't be reactive. We are presenting a vision of what we're fighting for, and I think for far too long we have had politics that is reactive to what Republicans are doing. What we need is Democrats who are actually going to present a positive vision, one that sets the tone for what we should be talking about, which is the issue of affordability, which is the issue of how our budgets are moral documents. If we say that we want to invest in working people in this country, then we need to do that, and our budgets need to reflect that. If we say that we value immigration and immigration justice, we need to make sure that that is also reflective in our policy. And so I'm very proud of a campaign that we built that centers those ideals, that centers those values and that vision for what we need as a community. And that's how I'll continue to move forward in Congress. And I think that for far too long, this reactive conversation of what we should be afraid of has prevented us from being able to have a politics of hope and a politics of life that Democrats can actually identify with. When the majority of the Democratic base has been seeking for the Democratic Party to act.
She's a commie. They phrase it this way all the time. True communism has never been tried because every time what she's suggesting occurs, lots of people get murdered. Friend of mine's very liberal. She owns 3 houses. did I mention she was very liberal? She'd be one of the first ones up against the wall. Because she owns 3 houses. Bernie, I mean, it's like, well, they won't, I'm on their side, blah, blah, blah. As soon as they get power, they're coming after you. This was one of the things I focused on that other video, and there'll be a link up here. There was either one back when I first mentioned it. Maybe I'll put it up here again. This was posted just a few days, about 5 days or so before the primary election. This is the New York Times. Did I say New York? Maybe, no, it's the New York Magazine. I thought it was New York Times. It's New York Magazine's editorial board. I don't remember magazines having editorial boards. Here's her prison abolitionist thing. Just speaking of human rights and human dignity, I'm going to read this whole thing. I mentioned this in the other video I did. And I said, they ask her, let me read the question. You've been a prison abolitionist, a decarceralist. What should happen to somebody who's killed somebody else? I mean, I went to a sentencing last week. A man killed another man. Didn't know the person, just sitting on a stoop. Got an 18-year prison sentence. Should that person not go to prison, and what should happen instead? This is a practical question, okay? When I did the short, I basically said her answers were word salad, which they were. They were very reminiscent of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is smart enough not to give this answer because she wouldn't have had a prayer in a swing state if she'd given this answer. But apparently this is okay for New York. So Chevalier responds, for prison abolitionists, I think a lot of folks misunderstand what the vision of the world actually is. And it is one that actually centers around this question of harm. At the heart of what we're asking is, why is there so much harm in our society? And how do we, A, prevent it, and B, deal with it when it happens? And as someone who has worked with folks who have been incarcerated, who have felt ostracized, for lack of a better term, by so many facets of our society for being poor, for being black, for being Latino. I work at a public defender's office, where most of our clients are incredibly poor black and brown New Yorkers. And for so many, the crimes that they're being indicted for are crimes of poverty, or the effects of poverty. This is kind of disgusting. If you're poor, you're a criminal. That's what she's saying. That denies people agency. No one's responsible for what they do, especially if they're poor. Does that apply if they're rich? Does that apply to Bernie Madoff, who fleeced people out of their entire life savings? That's just the effect of wealth. It's the effect. Wealthy people steal, and so there's nothing. It's the way it is, I guess. I mean, if there's no one's to blame for anything. It's the old Monty Python Dead Bishop on the Landing sketch. You can look it up. Dead Bishop on the Landing. Guy finally cops to killing bishops. And he says, well, it's a fair cop, you got me, but society's to blame. Okay, we'll arrest them instead. So they go around arresting all the other characters. She continues, and when I think about this question of harm, I think, how do we create a society where people feel so safe they don't need to pick up the phone and call police? We incarcerate more people. If we put you away for jaywalking, it's you'd feel safer. And when harm does happen, how do we actually create repair? Because what we have right now is a system that, whenever harm happens, there's more harm being perpetrated. Not only in the folks who engaged in the harm, but also on the victims of the harm. I'm someone who's actually been the victim of crimes, of violence, and gone to police as a young person thinking, doing that thing the society told me to do. And all that did was traumatize me more. Josh Greenman says, but what do you do to the murderer though? Or what do you do? And she says, but so I'm trying to answer the question, which is that what we do is that we then put people behind bars in incredibly traumatizing conditions in a context where they cannot actually reflect on the harm that they caused. So she wants them to go to like a retreat or a spa, maybe. Or feel any remorse on that because they're just trying to survive inside. And they're being re-traumatized day after day while inside. And then when they're released, they're bringing that trauma back into our community. Well, there's an argument for never releasing them. And that is having a reverberating effect on everyone in our society. And so as an abolitionist, when you think about this question of harm, we have to think not only about interrupting that cycle of harm, but also preventing it from the onset. And part of that has to do with thinking about what are the systems that actually reduce that harm from happening in the first place. And I've spoken to clients at the public defender's office where you hear the larger story of what happened. And it was folks who were under so much stress from the conditions that they were facing that they lashed out in a way that was out of character, in ways that they deeply regret. They don't have a way to actually repair now because they don't have a pathway towards that. You see folks who just need access to medical care. I had at one of the jobs I had many years ago, a client who would actually intentionally get arrested because being on Rikers was the only way he could get access to his bipolar medication. And this is a reflection of a larger failure of our system to actually protect our people from harm, to think about harm in a more expansive way and actually address it meaningfully and effectively. Josh Creeman. But did we answer what happens to the murderer? Do you not incarcerate the murderer? Again, I'm talking about this question between the distance between the world we want to see at the end, the world we want to see, and the world that we're at. And tomorrow, when that instance happens, that incarceration is what's going to happen, right? And I don't think anyone in society questions that's what's going to happen. Well, yeah, but not if you had your way. So she never answers the question. She's like, that's the way it is now, but what would you do? In your world, what happens to someone who walks up to somebody else they don't know on a stoop and just kills them? And this happens, it's like, oh, they're being victimized too. I recall the retired cop who a couple of kids joyriding, he was out, this was in Arizona, I believe. A couple of kids were out joyriding in a stolen car, saw him riding his bicycle on the side of the road, and purposely ran him over and killed him. I think they were both minors at the time. They were tried as adults, and they're sitting there, they're not feeling any trauma from having killed someone whom they didn't know from Adam. There was no reason behind it. There's trauma. Well, I hope these guys get some trauma, because what they delivered to that man and his family is. But she just sits there and she wants to create a world where evil doesn't exist, where people never. It's like, lady, that's not this world. It's not. And I don't care how much into restorative justice and whatnot you are. You need to have prisons, or we need to do more capital punishment. Because those are the only two options for a certain class of criminal. Because otherwise, you just let them right back out and they do more trauma to the public. You can play that, you get attacked or you get, robbed or you get, and you don't want to press charges, that's fine. But you're also making it easier for the same person to do it to the next, to somebody else. So she never answers the question. She says, oh yes, under our system, that's what's going to happen. But the question is, what do you do if you are creating this this world, if you're in charge? And she just is going to wave away humanity's fallen nature. And I suppose it gets worse. It gets worse. So Chevalier was also a co-founder of a group that at Columbia University, in the wake of the October 7th attacks, demanded the total eradication of Western civilization. Mamdani-backed socialist Daraliza Avio Chevalier, next likely congressman from New York's 13th district, was part of the 2024 campus takeover at Columbia University, and a key player in a radical anti-Israel group that once declared it was fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. She was a member of she co-founded the Columbia University Apartheid Divest campaign aimed at coercing the Ivy League school to cut financial ties with Israel. The anti-Israel group made its intentions clear in a long-since deleted Instagram post outlining its mission. We are Westerners fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. We stand in full solidarity with every movement for liberation in the global South. Our intifada is an internationalist one. We are fighting for nothing less than the liberation of all people. Here's a screenshot of her wearing her Columbia University Apartheid Divest and the aforementioned Instagram post. We'll zoom in here a little bit more. We reject every genocidal eugenicist regime that seeks to undermine the personhood of the colonized. Buzzword, 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 buzzword. As the fascism ingrained in the American consciousness becomes ever more explicit and irrefutable, we seek community and instruction from militants in the global South who've been on the front lines in the fight against tyranny and domination which undergird the imperialist world order. Revolution must continue. And then there's this classy bit. Without comment. That's from her Twitter feed. Again, this is deleted. Some people have suggested that, hey, maybe Congress can just not seat her if she wins. From what I've seen, that's going to be really, really tough. Congress passed a Contested Elections Act a bunch of years ago, and it basically said that the only way you can kind of refuse to seat somebody is if they don't meet the requirements. They don't live in the state or the district. Sometimes the district doesn't matter, but they don't live in the state. They're not a citizen. They don't meet the age requirement. Then you can refuse to seat them. But just about everything else, you kind of can't. The only possible exception to that is if you read this statement, fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization, I'm not sure how she can honestly take the oath of office for the seat. Because you swear an oath to uphold and protect the Constitution of the United States. And if she's all about eradicating Western civilization, she's lying when she says that. Has she had a change of heart? Has anyone asked her? It'd be an interesting question. When they go to swear her in, is she going to refuse to say that? If she refuses to say that she's going to protect and defend the U.S. Constitution, which is obviously what she believes, then that's probably the only way they can refuse to seat her. I would love to see the mainstream media cover that situation, cover that argument. Yes, let's just dismiss that the oath of office, as specified in the Constitution, is optional for some people. Yeah, this is what you want to elect, New York. Elect otherwise, you've got some decisions to make. The Republican Party, famously, when bizarrely David Duke won, I believe, the Republican nomination for governor in Louisiana, Republican Party said, no, don't vote for him. Vote for the crook, who's the Democrat. Democrat had some money scandals. Republican parties, George H.W. Bush said, we don't support him. We are not, putting any resources into getting him elected. We ask people not to vote for him. Peter King in Iowa took an anti-Semitic turn, apparently about 10 or 15 years too early, and Republicans got rid of him. Clean their own house. They don't, this is not they don't always clean their own house. But there's some evidence that this can be done. Do Democrats have the stomach to do that? I'm not sure they do. I'm not sure if Peter King was in Congress right now that the Republicans would do the same thing they did when they kicked him out 10 or 15 years ago. And maybe it's longer than that because I'm old. But, and then when I posted that, I posted a 3-minute short online about her whole prison abolition thing. And you can go to the Facebook. I got a bunch of comments on this. Got a bunch of views too. But these are some of the comments. I've blacked out their stupidity, their names. But if you go to Facebook, it's hoystory.com. There you will see these, and their names will be viewable to you. But when I pointed out she wants to abolish prisons, she won't say what to do with a murderer. One guy said I was just making stuff up. Another one said, I don't think this person was referring, I think it's a he, was referring to Chevalier, but this puke is another sick, Bible-thumping clown spreading hatred and lies. Again, is New York Magazine editorial board lie? I mean, she didn't go to them and say, take that down. That's not what I said. You made it up. Another one saying it's fake news. And then the last one's my favorite. Hamas are Israel mercenaries. You don't see no brown hands on the negotiating, do you? You've been played. Plus, we funding it. So why even worry about something that U.S. is in control of? Israel funding Hamas is a new one on me, and we're in control of it. Are we in control of Israel or Hamas, or are they one and the same? A lot of crazy online, ladies and gentlemen. These people have computers or phones or something. Beware. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Again, follow me on all these normal places. Buy my book. Hoystory.substack.com. Subscribe, like, all that jazz. Thank you for spending some time with me today. Talking about the future of the Democratic Party. I took no joy in doing this show, really. It's sad that this is what the Democratic Party is coming to, but and we'll see if we can reclaim it. These were a bunch of these New York candidates were Democratic Socialists of America, who are really communists. Will the Democrats take the party back from them, or will they just? I think it was Hakeem Jeffries or something, or no, it was Cory Booker said, "Oh no, we're a big tent." If that's what you're including in the tent, we got problems. I hesitate to see what happens when the squad, and these are. You almost think that Chevalier is running for Congress to take the crazy off of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Because right now, you look at her, she's the biggest nut. But, she's got a big following in the Democratic Party. Maybe this makes her look more moderate. And that's why, you got Chevalier. So we'll go even crazier. Now AOC looks moderate. She's not. I don't know what the future of the Democratic Party is. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a registered Republican either. Haven't been since 2016. But I'm concerned about the parties and the way Democratic Socialist America has decided that it's easier to take over the Democratic Party than to start their own. And that's what it looks like is happening. Thanks for joining me. Like, follow, subscribe, tell all your friends, and we'll see you next time.